in a number of places around the world, and we had about 200 people potentially exposed to the virus that are now here in our backyard in District 41. And Congressman Takano failed to notify the elected officials and local communities that this was happening, and he knew about it.
Okay.
He, in fact, authorized it and okayed it. And so...
Why would he do that when we are at the artery of all these interstates and, and it can spread very, very viciously?
Yeah, I know. So it's an airborne virus, and it's spreading very quickly in China, which is why there's a state of emergency in different countries now. Mm-hmm. And the U.S., there's been a few individuals that have been found to carry the virus.
Right.
And so the airplane, is my understanding from a newspaper article, was actually on its way to, I think it was Ontario Airport.
Yeah.
And it was diverted here.
Yeah,
last minute.
There's a direct flight that goes to Taipei, direct flight from Ontario to Taipei. So that was the plane that was coming in.
Right.
So why couldn't they let it stay in Ontario?
Well, and they were prepared in Ontario. They
Right.
were set up to receive those individuals, and there was planning involved in that as well. He allowed it to come here at the very last minute without first having a plan in place with local community leaders, I have no idea. And that's a really good question for the congressman, who seems to be MIA, because I've had conversations now with 3 residents that spoke with me and asked me questions about what the status of the coronavirus is. And I don't know what it is, but they were unable to get through to the congressman's office.
Well, here in Moreno Valley, and I know you're originally from the city of Paris, is where you rep Paris. The only councilman that was available was Dave Marquez. Mm-hmm. He's with the 3rd district, or he switched, whatever, 3rd or 4th district.
Okay.
And so he was over there. And the other leaders of the city, the Edoites, the people that I call the Edoites, that's me, not her, that's me. The Edoites weren't there. The Highland Fairview, Edo's people, all 4 of them, wasn't even there to make a statement or say anything.
What did they know about it?
Well, how did Dave Marquez know about it?
I have no idea. I mean, I couldn't tell you, but it happened. I think people were finding out about it the morning of. Right. And so,
because I got a news clipping of it, so
yeah.
An alert that kind of told me what was going on.
It's very serious. I mean, if you think about it, Wuhan, and I looked this up when I heard about it. Mm-hmm. Wuhan is in China is 3,200 square miles.
Yes,
which is about nearly half the size of Riverside County. District 41 is a much smaller area, and so the concern is if there's a virus that has gone airborne that's created a state of emergency in this large area in China, what's the exposure to local communities? And that's a conversation that our congressman should have had with local officials. And if there is no concern, I think it's something that he should have gotten in front of and give assurances to the people. But he needs to be present and available to answer these questions, because it's
right.
Very serious.
We both have a military background. Now, usually when the military has something like that that's coming in, they have a mechanism that's supposed to inform the local community that they serve and they're around to let them know. What power Mark Takano has as a congressman to even authorize that plane to even come this way. Now, I just have a theory. It just seems to me the plane didn't want to land in Burbank. It didn't land in Santa Ana. Didn't want to land at LAX. Mm-hmm. So where do you send a plane that has a virus in it where there's a high Hispanic black population? I mean, that's just, it's just like, it just doesn't make sense to me how you would throw it out here when it could have gone to Victorville, the old George Air Force Base, where it's isolated over there.
Right.
It could have gone to a bunch of airfields in
more
Nevada.
Isolated,
right?
More
in Nevada.
isolated and away from and that's interesting because March Air Reserve Base is about 500, 1,000 feet away from Moreno Valley residents.
Right,
it's right across the street.
It's right outside my door.
Right across the street.
Right,
and it's a low income community. Right. It is a disadvantaged community.
Right.
So that's a really excellent point. Why is it that it landed here
versus
in close proximity to residents? Yeah, versus somewhere else that's
Long
more
Beach,
isolated.
You have more places that they could have gone. The Mojave Desert has a lot of airfields out there.
Right.
That they could. Edwards. Why couldn't you let it land at Edwards?
Yeah. So those are good questions for the congressman, but he was briefed. Okay. It was a federal coordination.
Sure.
So of course he's involved in the conversations. But why he didn't fight to have the airplane go elsewhere?
Yeah, because
And not here in his backyard, our backyard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I'm the leader and I say, "Wow, this you want to land this plane in my community?" Oh, absolutely not. That's what I would have said.
Yeah, me too. That's what I would have said. I mean, especially in understanding the community around the airport. I mean, it's just just north of Paris, and Paris. I speak about Paris not being the most. I mean, as far as education, attainment, unemployment, poverty rate, I mean, we're right there with the community right next to the air base.
Right. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you how close it is. The security guard for the base is right there. I could bring him water, technically. I can walk out there and say, "You guys need some water?" That's how close I am to the base. But
yeah, it's pretty close.
But yeah, so we're going to keep monitoring that. And, like I said, another misstep by Mark Takano. I don't know if he's trying to, put up his military credentials, which he doesn't have. He doesn't give a damn unless it's election time, whatever. But let's get to some serious topics here. How is your campaign going? And tell us a little bit about, how's everything going? Where are you going to be appearing next?
So if you're on, so my website is drgraceforcongress.com, and I have my social media up, and so I'm starting to upload a number of videos that I've been working on, kind of emphasizing my platform on workforce and skills training, because that's my biggest mission right now, is to build a hub for technical and trade skills in our district, so we can bring in strong jobs in the aerospace and defense field, bring in high-tech jobs, making sure that our people are the ones going into shops, building the robots, operating and maintaining them, and also building up a strong career technical education programs in our K through 12 schools, and making sure we're promoting entrepreneurship in those schools, building up a local economy, starting first with education and workforce. So that's what I'm working on. You'll see some videos coming up on that. I've been working very hard in trying to find an organization that would host candidate forums, because
I'm working on it.
Voters need to know. Ballots go out next week, Tuesday, February 3rd. The elections for the primaries is less than 5 weeks away, and I'm very eager to get in front of voters with the other candidates, so voters can hear what our plans are.
Right, but have you noticed that certain candidates and incumbents? Wow, that's not really a lot of discretion, but sometimes when you're the incumbent and you've got a big war chest, you just kind of phone it in because you just think that you're the one that's going to be, and so you get an attitude to where you feel, I don't have to go to a candidate forum. I don't have to be in front of this person. Who is this? Thing. So. I'm not saying I'm not making excuses for him, but I think that's a lot of what it is, because you don't see a lot of these candidates. I mean, you're out here working hard. You're knocking on doors and stuff like that. And, reminds me of me when I was a young firebrand back in the day and stuff like that. And it's a lot of work. People don't realize how much work it is to do that.
Yeah.
So, and then, you're coming in as an upstart. So, one of the questions I have for you is, you're a Democrat running against an incumbent Democrat. Now, me as a political junkie, I have always said that when an incumbent is being run up against by a member of his own party, there's a problem somewhere, or there's something to where that person has to challenge that person. So what has been your experience like being a Democrat running against a Democratic incumbent?
It has not been easy. When I first started this race, and I didn't take it personal, because in the very beginning of filing for candidacy to run for Congress, the DCCC, which is the Federal Democratic Party, issued a directive to campaign consultants, that anyone that would work with new Democratic candidates running against incumbents will be blacklisted. So that blacklist was created from the very beginning. So there were firms that wouldn't even touch me because of the fact that I'm a new Democrat running against an incumbent, and the word was that Nancy Pelosi was looking to protect all incumbents. So before I even got in front of the Democratic Party to ask for an endorsement, there was already a direction that came down from the National Party that all incumbents will be protected. And there was a process that was put in place, a pre-endorsement, because there had to be a perception that the Democratic Party was leveling the playing field for everybody.
Right.
So they created this pre-endorsement process, which to me was sort of a screen to the public to say, hey, we made sure that everybody went through the process, when in fact they had already decided who
The
they were going to...
winners and the losers, right?
Yes, they already decided from the very beginning, starting from the blacklist directive from the DCCC, that they were going to protect the incumbents. So I went into the pre-endorsement understanding that Takano was going to get the union's endorsement, that he was going to get the party endorsements, that the local parties were also going to endorse, because there were directives from the state leadership.
They don't get their money. They don't get their money.
The state leadership, Democratic Party, kind of funneled, direct down. It came down to the local level that the Democratic parties would align with the state party and protect the incumbents. So the uphill climb for me started
from the very beginning.
Very beginning. So the fact that the party worked very hard to set these things in place made it harder for me as someone who's new to the game, but truly wanting to represent the community, made it harder for me to get out there and first find firms that would work with me. So thankfully I had a really great team with me at the very beginning that helped me set my strategy up front, which got me far enough, and I got another strategist on my team now, and some other people that are on board that are helping me with my media, my messaging, connecting. And
they're doing a good job,
right,
because I've seen the media; it's been awesome. So.
Yeah, so I've been blessed. I'm so grateful. So I paid a fee to play in the pre-endorsement process. Raised money and also put in my own money to run this race. So it hasn't been easy. But it's a fight that I'm still in, and I'm so thankful. Let me tell you, don't feel sorry for me, because I've met a lot of great people that did get behind me, that are supporting me. Businesses, local businesses, manufacturers that heard my message about jobs and skills training and are getting behind me. And I'm also grateful for local elected officials that are supporting me as well and making connections for me. And it is scary. It's scary running against an incumbent.
It is, because they have a massive war chest, and people are just used to the name.
Yeah.
So
and people are afraid of going against the grain, not just on the incumbent side, but people that know the incumbent that don't want to be chastised politically in any way, especially those who are running for re-election.
Right.
They're going to be a little bit gun shy, even if it's the right thing to do, because they don't want a massive machine running against them. So.
Well, Mark's been in there since 2012. We are now in the year 2000. Our area looks like hell, has not improved, in my opinion. I mean, and I got to be honest, as somebody who worked on his campaign the year that he got elected, that is the year I worked on his campaign, I have not seen any improvement in the Inland Empire in the 41st District since he was elected. And I'm not saying he did a bad job, but you can't say he's doing a good job. He's just like in the middle, sitting there, just, okay, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do this. It's like he's not making any movement for the improvement of the constituents.
It's but Donovan, it's hard for you to make changes for your constituents if you're disconnected from them.
Exactly.
If you're a representative, so in my opinion, Congress folks are extensions of their voters' voices in Washington, D.C.
Right, supposedly.
But if you're disconnected from your voters, there's going to be that disconnect in federal funding locally. So that's why we're not seeing federal funds locally from his office. He hasn't brought in federal projects or programs on his own to help improve our schools, improve, other the attraction of a variety of businesses. To help offset some of the warehousing activities going on. So if you're disconnected from what's going on locally, that's what's going to happen. What you're describing is what we'll see. And I think that's why you haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no tangible. There's nothing I can really see that's like, wow, look at what he's, this is coming in there.
But I would say, though, Donovan, I mean, I've seen improvements. I mean, I've been out in this area 20 years working in economic development. I've seen a lot of changes. I mean, Paris is coming up.
Oh, yeah, no. In 20 years, yeah, but I'm talking about in the time that he's taken office.
But in the 6 years that he's been in office, what has he done on the local level? What has he done for nonprofits? What has he done for schools?
I've seen an increase in homelessness. I've seen, these things that, just this is what I see.
Justice issues
Right.
like homelessness
Right.
and human trafficking,
Right.
which are big in our district. And no, because those things he has said in public forums, he has said that those things are local issues, not federal. Once again, it's that disconnect from what's happening locally.
So because he deems it a federal issue, he doesn't give a damn? Doesn't he live in this area? Doesn't he have a home here? So wouldn't it be something that if a homeless person was parked on his lawn, wouldn't he have an issue with that? That's what I'm saying. I just don't understand how that's going.
I agree.
But what are your thoughts on, okay, right now, all the polls right now have Bernie Sanders leading. And everybody calls Bernie Sanders a socialist, and he's not. He's an FDR Democrat. And if you think FDR is a socialist, because under the FDR, a lot of programs were started, like Social Security, under FDR, right? So what are your thoughts on socialism?
So I grew up in a socialist culture.
Yes.
And I am not for socialism.
Okay.
And only because of my experience with socialism. And so I had a conversation with actually a few conversations with folks that identify themselves as far left, like liberals.
Ooh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I think a few I've met that actually identify with Bernie's movement of socialism. And there are folks that were born and raised here.
Right.
So my thing is, why would you wish for something that you've never experienced before?
Right.
Like, it's, I joked with a girlfriend of mine. It's like if you were married and you were at a beach and saw a guy walk by with an 8-pack and said, that's what I want. I want that 8-pack. But you have no idea what other underlying issues this individual has. So why would you? I wouldn't wish for something that people don't understand. What I grew up in a socialist. You own nothing. Everything, it belongs to everybody.
Right.
It's communal.
Right. Now clarify that for the people that might not. They take the sound. Oh, she must have lived in Russia or whatever.
No,
Yeah,
so I grew up in the South Pacific.
South Pacific, right?
All right, Samoan, and I'm Samoan culture, and Samoans will tell you the culture is socialist in that everything is communal. In the Samoan country,
everything's shared.
No one owns. There is no privately owned land. Everything is owned publicly by villages, and everything is shared. If and I joke, I've gone to people's homes with a certain set of flip flops, and I'll leave, and my flip flop. Somebody will walk away with my flip flops because in that culture, it's okay to because it's considered borrowing and it's shared. Oh, whatever I take, God will bless you 10 times.
10 times.
So when someone says socialism is what they want, they don't want capitalism. Those are red flags for me.
Okay.
Right? Because I almost want to say to them, please don't use words that you don't understand, because socialism is truly not what you want. And in fact, capitalism is what this country was built on. And that's what it's part of this country's DNA when we tell people pursue the American dream, that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We're really talking about individuals elevating themselves into, to a certain level, pursuing your ability to make money and be successful. And that's the basis of capitalism. And it's not something that we should
take lightly.
Well, we shouldn't want to eliminate that because it's part of our DNA.
Right.
Because when I hear socialists in our culture say that socialism is what they want, I really think they're more talking about they want to get rid of greed. It's really an anti-greed movement,
right?
Because that's really what I hear them talk about.
Yeah, because I have a lot of friends. You were in the military. A lot of military people are far right wingers. A lot of them, especially the leadership. Most of these guys are far right. They're just conservative right wingers, right? And they hate socialism, but they don't have a problem with Social Security. They don't have a problem. You know what I mean? There's certain things, and so the military is basically a socialist construct. Not all of it, but in general, we all share soldiers and stuff. We share
it's an
things,
institution,
right? Our healthcare, and we do that. So if you haven't experienced that, it is what it is. But yeah, the socialist thing is, like you said, I think it's more of getting rid of the greed and the corruption and
improving access. So I also when improving access to services,
right?
Making sure that everyone has access to good health care is a good thing. That's what we should pursue, and then making sure everybody has access to quality education, quality housing, improving quality of life. So access to those opportunities to pursue quality of life is absolutely something I stand for and that I'll fight for. But it's not necessarily socialism,
right?
In my mind.
So let me ask you this, because it's going to happen in the next couple of years. Thanks to who we have in office and the policies that are taking place. The banks are going to crash again, and all this stuff's going to happen. Now, when the crash of 2007 actually happened, or 2008 actually happened, why is it that banks and these businesses turn socialist when, if it's true capitalism, you're done? You're done. You're done. So as a congressman, would you vote to bail out businesses and banks? If, whatever their decisions are, crashes them into the streets.
So it was public funds that we used to bail out those institutions. Yes. And they've made a lot of money.
Gang busting.
Right? Since that, where's our return?
Investment.
Where's our ROI?
Thank you.
Where is the public's ROI in those bailouts? That's where government failed. Exactly. So when they put conditions on those public funds, they didn't consider, I think they envisioned where we might be, assuming that it was a goodwill exchange, that that they being the government, relied on these institutions' goodwill by bailing them out, that they would in turn do right by the American people, which they didn't.
They didn't, exactly.
So I think we did not do right by the American people by not putting more stringent conditions on our funding and making sure that there was a stronger ROI on our investments.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching, you can also listen to us on the podcast. Just go to Spotify and iHeartRadio and any other platform you have. We're usually on there. Big question. We have a lot of young people here. The city of Moreno Valley alone is 208,000 citizens. Half of those citizens are college age and lower. Should the government pay off college debt?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes.
I have a lot of college debt.
Yeah. We'll talk.
I have a lot of college debt, right?
The government paid off mine, so I'm good.
Oh, well, yeah.
To the military,
Yeah. Not my doctorate degree.
Okay, no. My
master's.
You're on that one.
But, so as someone that has a doctorate degree, Donovan, my ability to make, six figures, understanding that I have that capacity to make a good living just based off of my education.
Sure.
Do I feel comfortable taxing my neighbor who's working 2 to 3 jobs to keep a roof over their head, taxing them to pay off my college debt? The answer is no.
Okay.
But am I for access to education, to higher education, to improve opportunities for the American people? Absolutely. Okay. But I'm not about increasing taxes to pay off someone like the debt, like someone like me that can access jobs that someone else that doesn't have a degree can't access. Okay. That's, to me, is completely unfair. So if somebody were to come to me though and say, just like Elizabeth Warren in her plan was to increase the fair share of corporations, large corporations, to pay off college debt, I mean, I would consider that plan versus just having government pay off people's college debt.
Okay.
So that's where I stand.
Okay. Here in the Inland Empire, we have a lot of Amazon fulfillment centers. And as you've heard, Amazon does not pay any taxes.
Well, they pay the fair share.
But in general, though, they don't pay. As a congressman, when you get there, as a person who has to pay taxes on my level, compared to what Jeff Bezos and his company is paying, I mean, a lot of these corporations aren't paying a little nothing. What is your thought on that?
There's a lot of loopholes that we have to close to, again, ensure. And so when Elizabeth Warren talks about having large corporations pay their fair share, and Bernie talks about this a little bit too, but I feel like Elizabeth has her plans
better.
Yeah, she's a little bit more thought out on her process on how to balance those things out when it comes to corporations paying their fair share. But we have to take it down to a local level as well, because there are things that local communities do that aren't federally driven or influenced. And so on the local level, you also have to elect officials that are about developing community benefit agreements, making sure that large corporations are paying their fair share locally, so they're building the roads they got to put in to manage your traffic. They got to pay all the environmental dues. You know, if there's air quality programs, cap and trade, all those things that they have to participate in, they have to make sure that they're bringing the maximum benefit to the table for the community, but that happens on the local level.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask you this, just in general, for everybody that just kind of wants to know, what sets you apart from your opponents? Well, I mean, other than your
So I have experience in bringing in federal dollars. I've talked about this in your last show.
Yeah.
The experience of lobbying for projects in Washington, D.C. I'm a practitioner at heart, meaning I'm all about finding solutions to problems, but doing it very practically. I don't promise anything I know I can't deliver. So that's the difference, is that I have experience in creating jobs and business opportunities. The things that I'm talking about on the campaign trail are things that I've done historically in my career. And when I talk about homelessness and fixing homelessness, it's because the ideas that I have in expanding that in our region, it comes from my ground level experience. So compared to Aja Smith and Mark Takano, I can't find anything in their background that really matches up to the needs that we have in the community. Neither one of them, I haven't seen any plans on either of their sides on how they're going to address homelessness or even human trafficking, how they're going to address education, workforce needs, and bringing businesses that are not warehousing, but businesses that build up manufacturing opportunities in this area. So, everything I talk about are things that I've already done and that I want to expand in Congress.
Yeah, because it's funny, like in the last show, I took a lot of notes and I thought about a lot of stuff that you said and a lot of the projects that you were already had championed. And I said, well, with all these people being gentrified out of LA and they're coming this way, I've lived out here since 1977, off and on, whatever I'm doing. And we've always been a bedroom community. So the only real jobs out here besides warehousing is fast food and just the general stuff. There's really no career jobs here. And a lot of stuff that you had said that you had done in Paris, and what was that ditch by the base over there that you did?
Yeah, Heacock Channel.
Yeah, the Heacock Channel. I mean, that project took a couple of months. A little over a year or two.
That project, a
year or two
to build, to construct.
So for the construction guys, that was a great thing, and it kind of had some employment and stuff, and it helped out the area and all that other stuff. And I'm thinking, you're right. Mark Takano doesn't talk about jobs to create for the residents that are out here now. You got almost 1 million people in the Inland Empire, if not 1 million. We just don't do the count right.
Right.
1 million people, but they're still commuting, and nobody's thinking outside the box to say, well, we need a job. What can we build in the Inland Empire that's going to sustain those people?
Here.
Right. So people don't have to go
commute
way over there.
Right. So if we were able to bring in the businesses, the tech businesses and other companies here that are creating opportunities for our skilled workers, our engineers, and our healthcare workers that are going out of the area, if we brought them all here, that would alleviate a lot of pressure on our freeways, on our streets as well. So we need to really focus, do a better job
of
doing that.
Doing that. How will you be effective in delivering these? I mean, you got great ideas. How are you, in a two-party system, how do you deliver that when this party wants this? This is the agenda for that party. I mean, how do you go about delivering those ideas and be successful in them? Yeah,
so for me, it's about being able to work across the aisle. And because...
You want to work with the Republican House?
Yes, I work very well with the Republicans, actually. I work very well with Republicans and independents because what I hang my hat on is the fact that everybody in this area cares about jobs. Everybody in this area cares about businesses doing well. Everybody cares about infrastructure, affordable housing. So there are a lot of things that we talk about that is nonpartisan, that doesn't belong to the Democrats or the Republican parties. It belongs to everybody. So the strength that I bring to the congressional seat in District 41 is my ability to work with everybody and help everybody focus on the priorities that are important for the people, and bringing the funds, the federal funds locally, to make sure that our cities are successful.
Okay. Well, I just have a curveball I kind of want to throw you real quick. As you know, Kobe Bryant passed
Yes.
Sunday, and there's something that you said on a previous show that I thought would be amazing for you to say on this one here for people that are going to be watching and listening on the podcast. With all the divisiveness in the country, what are your thoughts on Mr. Bryant's passing?
Yeah, so Kobe Bryant, who's, a hero, not just in this country, but internationally, and was such an icon in many ways for
Mr.
many
LA,
people,
yeah.
regardless of income, regardless of party affiliation. He was a guy that millions looked up to. And when the incident happened with him passing, very unfortunate. Literally within that day, Donovan, you heard nothing about the impeachment.
Right.
Like, the impeachment literally disappeared.
Yeah, because some people were confused. Like, is this real? Is it a meme?
Yeah. And even
Trying to figure it
the
out.
day after, I mean, that kind
When
of
it set
continued.
in,
And
yeah.
even now, so his service is
Tonight
tonight.
at
They're
Staples
having
Center,
a Staples Center event in memory of Kobe. But what he did for us in that very moment is that Kobe reminded us that there are things in this world, bigger things that are worth fighting for. There are bigger things that unite us than there are that divide us. And right now, what's going on in Washington, D.C., the impeachment is a perfect picture of how divided Washington, D.C. is.
Yeah.
What Kobe did for us in that moment, that tragic moment, is that he reminded us that family is what we all need to be fighting for. A love for our community, a love for the things that unite us, like our sports, our music, our food, the cultures that make this country unique, but also help us appreciate one another. That those are the things that we really need to be about, not the divisiveness that's going on in Washington, D.C. That's a message for in my run. It's about bringing things in this community that will unite everyone in this community and help improve our quality of life. And that's why, you on my social media and website, even though I do call Takano out on some things that I don't agree with, much of what I focus on are things like our education, our workforce, our businesses, homelessness, are the issues that we need to address together, because they're the things that unite us as a community in District 41. So that's what Kobe Bryant kind of reminded me of, was that message of, let's bring the focus back to our families, let's bring it back to our communities, and fight for those things.
Right. Locally, I'm throwing you some curveballs here real quick. We talk about, of course, the Inland Empire has a vast diversity of people. And here in Moreno Valley, we have a mayor that seems to cater to a certain group of people, which is, of course, the majority is Hispanic. Just because the city's named Moreno Valley doesn't mean everything has to go to the Hispanic community. So I think the black people in Moreno Valley, we're talking about just Moreno Valley right now, it's 32%, because I got to talk about that because that's where I live.
Okay.
32%. Now, everything is being catered to a certain group, and that's what this mayor does.
When you say everything, what do you mean?
Like, a good example is like the college tuition thing to let the kids go to school. I mean, that benefits a certain group more so than others, because by the numbers, who's going to get the majority of those tasks? There's nothing group specific. I'm a black man. I'm sitting here. We've got a bunch of soccer fields. Where are the basketball courts? And I'm not trying to stereotype. What I'm saying is that's what's happening in the city here. There's nothing that would pique my interest. Where's our pool? Not that you have power over that, because you're on a different level. You're on a federal level. But what I'm saying is, when you get to Congress, one of the issues for me and my people is reparations. What are your thoughts on the reparation issue, and why?
Well, so you brought this question up at the last show, and I'm for reparations.
Yeah.
And I'm for reparations because it's the right thing to do. And I don't know if you caught the news coverage that talked about Black Wall Street.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happened in Black Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And the injustice and we don't talk about it in our classrooms.
Exactly.
That history, the history of
Rosewood and all these communities.
Yeah, the Black history isn't taught in our classrooms.
No. We were slaves. Martin Luther King. Barack Obama.
Right.
Done.
So because we don't have those conversations, conveniently, a lot of issues when it comes to our Black communities they fall on the wayside. Right? Because we don't talk about it. And then when we do talk about it, it makes certain people uncomfortable.
Okay. And they should be.
Yeah, but we still need to talk about it. Reparations is the right thing to do. I don't understand, again, the study the study that's being pursued. So I talked with someone that supports Bernie Sanders. Now, I watched a show where Bernie Sanders did not answer the question.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Are you for reparations? And apparently he co-signed the bill for the study.
The study. What's the study going to do for Black people?
That was his way of backing reparations, right. But I don't believe he's for reparations.
No, most people aren't. That study, even the Black people that are championing the study, they aren't for reparations.
Yeah, so if you were for reparations and you were
Cut
involved in the civil rights movement, you would have been the champion for a reparations bill.
Right. But like Clyburn, he's in the leadership. And he's not for... They're not for the reparations. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because I know a lot of people are going to be on this show talking about, he's doing the racial politics. No, that ain't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're going to be on the federal level.
Yeah.
We have a Dreamers Act. We have money that's been given to the people on the border. God bless them. They need it.
It's an important issue. Yeah.
Yes, these are important issues. I mean, I'm not a monster, but again, I see everybody else being taken care of. We're giving reparations to Jewish people of the Holocaust. But as a Black man, I want to know what my issue is and how are you going to address it? Where's the check?
Right.
And who's going to champion that? I don't need a study. We already know the definition of reparations is a financial righting of a wrong. We know there's been a wrong. Nobody asked the Jews for a check. Nobody asked the Asians when they got their check. They didn't say,
they asked for the studies.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for the study. They said, here's a check. Here you go.
Right. There was a conversation that happened and there were champions in there. Right.
Right. So, that's, what I'm saying, because you're not going to see these Black pastors in the Inland Empire talking about it because they want to get pictures with you and be like, oh, yeah, I'm with her. She's come to my church. And that's good and great. But they're not asking you the serious question.
Yeah.
Reparations. Are you for it or are you against it? And when you get there, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I am for reparations. And I think it's important to know this study that's being done. So since our last talk, I haven't researched to see where it's at. The study,
right?
The bill was passed, and let's see where it's at or what the timing is.
Right. Well, the bill was passed to study it, so it doesn't really matter where they're at in studying it. I want my check. I could care less about studying because I know I don't need to study it. Give me my check.
Yeah,
that's where we're at. And as a Black person, I'm tired of these leaders. I go on Twitter and I see Mark and he says, we're doing something for the bullying of the children that might be LGBT in high schools.
What is it exactly they're doing?
Well, the kids are being bullied and he's saying we're going to put whatever you guys do, they're going to propose a law to stop bullying and we're going to do this.
So issues that like bullying, anti-bullying, issues like transportation infrastructure, those are things that there are already anti-bullying programs in schools. So the answer to addressing anti-bullying in schools, even for our LGBTQ students, is to increase funding for those programs. Increase funding to what's currently working. And that doesn't require passing a new bill. Okay. There are a lot of things that we can fix on the local issue and we can increase federal involvement. It does not require a new bill. It just requires someone in Congress watching to see where the money is, because every year these federal agencies get a budget. And their budget includes funding for projects and programs.
Right, unless Trump takes the money for the wall. But go ahead.
Right, and you fight against that, right? You fight against that. You get behind, so it takes someone with experience to know where those fundings are and to know how to get in front of that, to know how to mobilize the community and get in front of that funding so you can get it locally. That doesn't require new bills.
Right.
Reparations is something completely different because no one's, like you said, no one's cutting the check. But there's something going on in that culture that in Washington, D.C. that I'm sure I'll learn more about when I get there. And I'm hearing a lot of, stories about the culture in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
I've tasted a little bit of it because I've lobbied for projects in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. But, as you know, I am for term limits. I think a lot of things that we're experiencing, problems, delays in doing the right thing for communities is because of career politicians and because we don't have term limits in Washington, D.C.
News that came out today, what's that guy, Alexander from Tennessee? He said that, yes, Trump did a crime. He's a Republican. Trump did a crime. He says, yes, no doubt they've proven their case. The Democrats have proven the case, but I'm not going to vote. Which to me, as a black man, that said white privilege. Right there. And I'm not talking about, get out of the race thing. What I'm saying is that reminded me of like the 50s and the 60s where the people were like, I know you read the book Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
These are classic things that actually happened. So you have the Klansman that overwhelming evidence he killed these people, another racism, whatever, but they let him walk anyway. That's exactly what's happening. And what I'm saying is the guy, Tennessee, he's been in Congress for a long time as a senator. He's from a different era. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yes, Donovan.
When you're raised in a different... And like I said, I'm not blaming him at all. He's a product of his environment.
So the racism that this country was built on still lingers in our laws.
Yes.
And a big part of that is because lawmakers from back in the day that were a part of upholding a lot of those laws are still in office.
Right. I mean, he's going to retire.
So we can gripe all we want about reparations. We can cry all we want that there's not enough attention given to preventing black and brown kids from going to. I mean, we could.
Yeah.
But as long as we're not fighting against career politicians, as long as we're not pushing for term limits. We are going to continue to have this conversation 15, 20, 30 years from now.
Long after you've left Congress
the leadership
and the governor.
needs to change. Right. And anyone that backs the establishment's ability to protect incumbents and to not talk about term limits is part of the problem.
Right. Well, you remember, I think it was like 15 years ago when they were talking, the Democrats were like, yeah, we need term limits. Because Reagan was kicking the crap out of them. And, the Republicans back then, they were like, we need term limits. And the minute that Clinton got elected and, they still had control of the Congress, they stopped talking about term limits. Once they got into power.
It's about power.
Yeah,
it's a power struggle all day, every day. And as long as we continue to not push for term limits, as long as we need to fight as hard for term limits as we did for impeachment.
Exactly.
Democrats need to be up in arms because I'm telling you, talk about socialism. It doesn't matter as long as you have career politicians controlling the narrative in Washington, D.C., we're not going anywhere much further.
As a layman, somebody like that, I often wonder that right now the Democrats have control of the House. They can pass a bill right now that has term limits. They can do it. And it might not make it past the Senate, but they can pass it, even if it's symbolic.
Okay, right.
And I always ask myself, how is Dianne Feinstein worth $300 million? How are these public officials worth what they're worth? I mean, Aunt Maxine, $86 million.
Wow.
But you're a public official.
Yeah, we could do a lot with that in homelessness.
Right.
We could build a lot of homes with that.
Exactly. Oh, did you hear about that town that I saw the article today. They built a homeless town for the homeless people.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are those ideas for us here?
Yeah.
I'm not saying give everything away, but sometimes some people need help. So.
Well, I think in many places, like our district, a lot of people need help.
Yeah. And here's another thing for those, of course you guys are in the Inland Empire. It isn't the fact that there aren't enough homes. There's plenty of homes being built. You guys see it all the time. They're not affordable.
You can't afford it.
You can't afford it, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
And nobody's addressing affordable housing.
Affordable, yeah. Well, we're talking about it now. The state's talking a lot about it. but it's very expensive to build in California.
Yeah, with all the regulations.
Developers know the cost of the cost of the permits, the regulations, to go through the California Environmental Quality Act. It's very expensive to build in California. So we need to push for more federal funding towards infrastructure, because that's a really big cost. In the Inland Empire, because there's a lot of vacant land, the biggest cost in developing anything new, homes, commercial, whatever, is infrastructure. Streets, flood control facilities. So when you bring in the federal dollars to help